Okay, everybody, how you doing? This is your brother from another Brother Mays. We're here live on the Brother Mays show, and I have a special guest in the house, and of course, a very close friend, Dr. Jokima Hiller. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm doing better. I'm doing better. We talked a little bit off air, and I understand you have been a little bit of you've been ill and or not say ill, but you've just come off of back surgery. So
Sure.
the good thing is we're not in a studio setting to where you're moving around too much. You're in your comfort
No.
zone. I'm in my comfort zone. So thank God for that. For all you guys that are just joining us for the first time tonight, this is the Live with Brother Mays show, and I am the host, Brother Mays, and of course, each and every week on Wednesday nights. 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time. I have special guests that come on and we have a nice little conversation. And tonight we're going to be focusing on not an amputee faith. And for those who know, of course, Miss Jokima, or should I say Dr. Jokima Hiller, you'll kind of know where this is going. But at the end of the day, we want everybody to chime in and just sit back and relax, to listen to a great person, an individual, a woman of faith, and someone that I can say truly has the heart of God. And so just to start, Jokima, can you tell us right away, who is Jokima? If somebody just walked up to you right
Ooh,
now, who is Jokima?
Jokima is someone who aspires to be really the best aunt in the world.
Uh-huh.
Not only just to my three nephews and niece, but to anyone who needs one. you know, there are people who grow up and become adults and really haven't had an auntie-like figure
Yes,
in their
yes.
life. And so if I can step in and be that for them, I can. And by the way, my very first nephew is a college graduate. So
Oh, congratulations. So he's the
yeah,
class of 2020, right?
that's right. That's right.
Hey, for all those who are graduating, listen, that is amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
especially so he's really part of a inaugural part of the future. I mean, right now, because
that's
even my
true.
daughter, she's graduating from high school this year, and my youngest daughter's graduating from eighth grade, and she's like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm going to be the first graduate of the COVID era,
Right.
and for the lack of words, I mean, it's not something you want to celebrate, but then again, it is kind of something very interesting as
Yeah.
well. But hey, guys, I want to get back a little bit because Jokima, she's kind of shy sometimes. She'll say one thing and really it's another. But I want to just really let you know who we are dealing with, and I'm just going to run down a few of her accolades. Dr. Jokima Hiller's passion is to please and help her sustain an interesting career in the hospitality industry. Since the age of 15, oh my God, her blend of experience and education make her a great resource. She's held various positions, a variety of positions, ranging from human resources clerk and assistant reservation sales manager to front office manager, regional trainer, and general manager. Her bachelor's degree is in restaurant, hotel, institutional, and tourism management from Purdue University, Northwest, master's in business administration from Keller Graduate School of Management, and doctorate in hospitality management from Iowa State University, which puts her in a position to create best practices adopted by hotel colleagues, management, and franchise companies. Now, she is the co-author of the RevPAR formula. Am I saying that correct?
Correct.
And the Red Book, which is a book we are going to talk a little bit about tonight. And of course, author of the 7 Easy Ways to Show Your Employees You Care. She is currently an assistant professor at Missouri State University, teaching courses in lodging management, club management, and special event planning. She also specializes in online learning and social media networking and is a certified hospitality educator. She enjoys public speaking and, of course, has had numerous of opportunities to facilitate workshops on a variety of topics. Now, Jokima has a special story, and this is where I'm going to stop because we're going to kind of jump back into this a little bit later after we kind of cover some things real quick, if you don't mind. And of course, Jokima, kind of talk about that. You are an accomplished woman by academics, obviously by nature. Uh, what motivated you to get to where you are, at least today?
Sure. Well, I always knew I wanted to go into the hotel industry, probably as early as, oh, I don't know, maybe about 8 or 10 years old. I imagine if someone had asked me at 10, what do I want to do? I could probably at least articulate that I wanted to work in the hotel industry. I didn't know how far I wanted to get at the time, but I knew I wanted to work in the industry. And that was because I called it the magic industry. So I wanted
magic industry.
I wanted an opportunity to make magic. And
right.
I used to travel quite a bit with my family and with my church. And so when we would leave the hotel room during the day and then come back at night, I would notice that the bed was made. And I would go, oh my goodness, Mom, you didn't make us make the bed today. Who did this? How did this happen? Not understanding that there was an entire department that was responsible for that. Or if we stayed at, and I didn't know at the time that there was such a category, but if we stayed at a limited service or select service hotel, the cost of your meal or your breakfast is included in your rate. And I just remember getting in the car going, Daddy, you didn't pay for breakfast. We're going to jail, not understanding that whole concept. And so I have always wanted to make magic. And I love being behind the scenes and then looking to see the guest enjoy what my team and I have done. So
really in the customer service aspect, I mean, it's
absolutely.
by nature, you were just that person that said, hey, as long as everybody's happy, I'm happy.
That's right. I'm Auntie Jody of the hotel.
Well, here's the funny, because the first time that I met you, obviously we were in church, and of course at the time we had Pastor Alexander, who was Everett Alexander, great man, of course, and hopefully he's watching tonight. Obviously, I was new into the ministry, coming back home, and here we are starting a media ministry, or at least continuing what was, and I had said, man, I need a team. And I knew, I said, well, I see this young lady sitting down and she's always filming. She got her camera up and she is filming everything dealing with pastor to this, to that, and everything. And when I walked up to you, I said something like, do you want to be a part of my ministry? And then you was like, I'm already part of the ministry. I said, okay, no problem. But it was so fun learning your just who you were in general and where you were from, and I think even because you're talking about Gary, Indiana, right?
Absolutely, GI.
Yeah, GI in the house, right? Home of my favorite, Michael Jackson.
Absolutely.
I was always like, do you know Michael Jackson? 21, was it 21 Jackson Street?
Jackson Street, yeah.
And it's funny because I had a cousin that actually moved there and years and years ago, and my dad's side of the family, I was like, man, I said, give me a place to visit. And then of course he only stayed like maybe not even a year. He's like, man, it's too rough in Gary, Indiana. What's he talking about rough in Gary? I thought they were country folk.
Yeah, down home.
It's perfectly fine. Well, listen, guys, you got into the hospitality industry. Obviously, you have been in management. You've been in the customer service side of it. You started recently. You got your doctorate degree.
Sure.
And tell me, what was that experience like? Because that's, from number one, that industry alone is time consuming, and yes, to do anything more than just hospitality on an associate's level or even on a bachelor's level is just crazy. So kind of talk about that moving forward.
Sure. Well, knowing all along that I wanted to pursue a career in hospitality, I got my bachelor's degree, and then I started working in the industry. And I actually always used to go to my alma mater, Purdue Northwest, and be a guest speaker for students. Just like when I was in school, we would have guest speakers. And
Right.
so my professors and everyone that were still there said, you need to be teaching. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
Uh,
What most people don't know is that most of my family, on both sides of the family, have something to do in education. And so I called myself being a little rebellious. I was like, no, I'm never going to be a teacher. Are you serious? You know,
I know the feeling.
I'm going to
I
run
know the
hotels.
feeling.
I'm going to run hotels. And
Right.
so when I continued to go back year after year to speak to students, and they would always say, you really need to teach. You need to get your master's degree. So here I am working in the industry and working on my master's degree. I get my master's degree. Now I go back as a guest speaker, and they're like, well, if you want to get into education, you got to have a doctorate now.
Degree. Oh my God.
Are you serious?
Conversation I had a couple of years ago. Go ahead.
I actually started on my doctorate in 2013.
Right.
And I looked high and low for a program that you could do distance or online. And it was very difficult to do. So I wound up reaching back out to my professors, and they recommended Iowa State University's.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm going to stop you there, because Iowa State University is, and for a lot of people that don't know, I mean, it's probably one of the secret havens for hospitality programs.
It is.
And I ran into it, and I had a little stop at Wyndham working in sales and that area at one time. And man, when I started asking around that, I said, well, where'd you get your degree from? And, you know, people that had been in there, and they're like, oh, Iowa State. I'm like, okay. And I hear another part, Iowa State. And I'm like,
sure.
What's going on in Iowa State? You know, are they hovering some black people or something? I mean, what's going on? But is that from that experience? Do you feel like there's more of a demand? I mean, because here's the thing, this is no strike against you. You're black, obviously. You're a female, and you're successful. So obviously, people want to see that. Have you had more people reach out to you and say, "Hey, can you tell us your experience?" Just, you know, from that aspect? I mean,
you know, it's interesting that most people go, you have a what? A doctorate in hospitality? I didn't know that existed. Yeah. And so I think they come to me for one thing, you know, this is someone who has a doctorate, who's working in education. But then when they find out that I've got, 30 years of experience.
And you don't look a day over 28, go ahead. What's in the water?
Thank you very much. Then the conversation changes. They're like, how in the world, did you do both the experience and then the education? And I just say, it was the one day of the crossover of wanting to get into education. But you can rise and exceed and be successful in the industry without an education, because experience still today trumps everything.
Now, other than the word Trump itself, but I want you to kind of back up on that sentence there, because here we are in a time where people are transitioning, and people are finding a new normal, and that whole industry got hit hard. The whole travel industry, the hospitality industry got hit hard. You talking about bailing out. Some of these companies are like, you need to write me a check because ain't nobody staying in my hotels. What would you tell? Because I actually had this question to me a couple weeks ago. What would you tell a young person graduating right now in the hospitality industry and really seeing, is this the future that I want?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I'm starting out in the hole here. What's going on?
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things that I would tell them. First of all, I'm sure their faith in the industry is shaken right now, And so if they desire to do something else, guess what? They have a degree that has equipped them with transferable skills. I have received offers from banking throughout my career to work in the banking industry. I have received offers from apartment complexes, that are looking for someone with a hospitality degree. I have received offers from hospitals who want
Really?
to have someone that teaches their team bedside manner. You might
As
be a
if it's not already taught in the house, but go ahead. That's a whole nother
you
story.
might already be
Mm,
a great nurse
mm,
or doctor, but how do you treat people? And
mm,
so I think with a degree in hospitality, they are set to actually branch out and do almost anything that they can imagine. So,
mm.
I would let them know that they've got a great foundation to move forward in another area if that's what they choose to do. The
Mm,
second thing I would tell them is that if they decide to hold on,
mm,
uh, hospitality knows how to rebound. We've had
mm.
to do it many times before. I think about being in the midst of my career doing September 11th, and
Yes,
you
yes,
show back up at
yeah.
the airport and to
Mm,
see the military, not with rifles, by their side, they
mm,
actually had them in their hand. And just
mm,
what a scary moment that was. But we came back
mm,
and began to thrive after that. And so if they hold on,
mm. Come on
there
now,
will
that's a preaching word right there. Hold on,
there will
hold on,
be
yeah, come on.
there will be numerous opportunities for them to
Right,
help with that transition to come
right.
back, to rebound. I also had someone ask me, well, what do I do while I'm holding on? And
Right.
so my suggestion would be to practice.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Practice. When I first relocated from my parents' home to Indianapolis, and I got my very first apartment,
Mm,
people would ask me, "What are you doing?" I'm
mm.
practicing. Would you like to visit the Hillerton Hotel and Plaza? I,
I had a good comeback to that, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I said I'm gonna keep that one just okay over here. So so
and I would cater to, my aunts and my nephews and my
mm,
niece who would come and stay. No, they get room service. There's no chores, at the Hillerton Hotel and Plaza when it comes to the nephews and niece.
okay.
So, I exposed them to, a hotel, but it was my home.
Of what
And
to expect. Yeah.
part of the industry also is the culinary side of things. So
Yeah.
practice making eggs. There's so many different ways to make eggs. This is the time to
Okay.
hone your skills. So when they say, hey, we are about to rebound, you can
Mm,
step right into there and say, I've got however long you have to hold on. I've got 6 months worth of experience
right.
of practicing now. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to step right into a position.
That's a great. That's that part right there alone. It just makes me feel good because the encouragement of being able to give that word to someone. I mean, because there's many people hurting. I know just in the
Oh,
education industry,
yeah,
I've
absolutely.
seen my emails flutter, and I was actually looking into a new teaching position actually back in Florida, as I was telling you. And man, one of the people who interviewed me, they said, well, do you feel that you would be a better teacher in the classroom than being online? And I'm like, to be honest with you, I would love to be in the classroom, but if it forces me to stay online or be online, you're going to have to adapt either way,
Sure.
some kind of way. So we're all coming into this new normal in some type of way. For those who are just joining us, we have special guest, Miss Jokima Hiller, obviously Dr. Jokima Hiller, and she is a assistant professor at Missouri State University, and she's a certified hospitality I'm gonna say hospitality management. Is that the best way to say that?
Professional.
Professional,
Educator,
of course,
certified
an educator.
hospitality educator.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, because it's one of those things you don't normally even say every
Sure.
day.
It
So
doesn't flow.
it doesn't flow. But I see it, and I'm glad that I'm seeing someone that looks like me, that's doing it to a whole nother level. But as I was reading her bio out to some of you guys, I stopped at a point that I want to go right into because we're gonna really cover some things that most people would never know about uh, Dr. Hiller unless you are actually with her personally. And so in 2015, and may I say it this way, Jokima became an above-the-knee amputee in 2015, which had added a new layer of understanding from which she approaches her role as a hospitality industry professional. She challenges hotels proprietors to look beyond ADA, keeping in mind that compliance doesn't necessarily mean comfort. Now, her passion today is public and powerful as she shares her moments that mentors into her hospitality focused podcast that you do also on Anchor FM. And I kind of want to talk about that too, because you have fans, you have people who are listening. And so talk about the experience of becoming an amputee from your point.
Sure. Well, I was still working on my doctorate degree when I relocated to Springfield, Missouri from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And people are always shocked when I say I moved here on purpose because I didn't know anyone.
Right.
I knew no one. And the reason behind that is because I love Indiana. I was born and raised in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew a lot of people, and I was very engaged in the hotel and hospitality industry.
And not to interrupt you real quick, but you know I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, right?
Very good.
You know that because I couldn't stop being a Colts fan just because Manning left. But that's a whole nother story. Go ahead. Go Colts. All right.
So I would work, all day. I would get home, and I'm supposed to now work on my homework. Right. Well, I'd get a phone call that says, "Girl, are you going to the hotel networking event at the such and such hotel?" Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot about that. Close my book, and I'm out of there at the networking event. Or I was also on the board of Minorities in Hospitality. Right. I might get a text message that says, "Hey, I'm running late. Can you get the meeting started?" Okay, so now I'm out doing that. And I just couldn't focus, right, on my doctorate. And I knew that I needed to get it done in order to continue to be in education. So when I relocated here, not knowing anyone, it was easy for me to slip back into being a workaholic. Right. So there were days when I would show up and the school was actually closed because it was a snow day. I just had blinders on. I would arrive to work so early sometimes that my car would be the only one in the parking lot. And likewise, when I got ready to leave, I would be the only car in the parking lot. And so,
oh my goodness.
One day, I actually looked at my calendar and I said, I've been on my menstrual cycle for 2.5 months. That's not right. Something's wrong.
Right.
I went to the doctor and she prescribed an estrogen type medicine for me that was supposed to slow or stop my cycle. Right. And I would probably say by the second day, I immediately knew something was wrong, that I was having an adverse reaction to the medication. And so I called to the doctor's office, and the nurse returned my call, and she said, "The doctor said that if you can't wait to see her tomorrow, she'll fit you in, then you need to go to the emergency room." And I went to the emergency room that night. Well, in fact, what I said was, "Where's the emergency room?" Again, I'm a workaholic. I go to work, I come home, and I do my work. So she said, "You're going to go to Mercy. We're affiliated with Mercy." And I said, "Okay." Right. I put Mercy in my GPS on my phone, and I realized that it was right down the street. I was so embarrassed.
In Springfield, Missouri, girl, everything is around the corner. Okay, but go ahead.
No, I had never recognized that big building right there. Right. And so after being treated, I was in for a very long stay. I had developed blood clots in both of my legs, in which one was amputated. Some other issues that I had a hole in my heart that had gone undetected. And an issue that is still debatable today is that I say I ran my blood sugar up, and it was 1,300 level. And in fact, if you look at my records, it says the doctor said, I can't believe she's not in a coma.
Now,
So,
before you go any further, because here's where we come into play. And you know, I deal with diabetes as well. I didn't know if you knew that or not. To the point where my blood sugar level was over 600. And, you know, I had that same talk. The doctor said, you should be in a coma. You know, I was constantly working. And my A1C levels was over 15 for the last two or three readings. So I was like, wait a minute, you know, something's got to happen. But just to kind of break right there real quick, because I think some people think that amputation is got to be something majorly wrong, like you either as a previous athlete or you was a previous what do you say you know, was in the military, you had an accident and something happened and all that had to come. This can just come from just natural health and just in general. And so even with diabetes, they're telling me, okay, these are things you need to watch out, because down the road, obviously you can get your foot amputated if you don't take care of your blood sugar. So I'm just kind of catching people up to understand that where you were in this process. So you had a couple of health problems, but please go ahead.
Sure. Well, you know, I surprisingly, I didn't have any major health problems. My mom is a diabetic. My father had been borderline at that time. My sister had diabetes when she was pregnant. And so coming here, I knew that was something that I always needed to keep track of for myself. So if you look back at my records prior to that, my doctor was checking my A1C every 3 months. And so that's why I always tell people, I believe trying to battle the side effects from that estrogen medicine, I believe I ran my own blood sugar up, thus becoming diabetic in that situation. In fact, I just spent 5 days in the hospital not too long ago. And on the last day, the doctor said, who told you were diabetic? And that was because every day that I was in the hospital, 5 days, my blood sugar was being checked multiple times because I was classified as diabetic, but not one time did I ever require insulin or metformin or any medication. So today, I'm still uncertain as I was,
it's fun.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There's so many, especially now with the COVID-19, so many people are getting false positives, false negatives, how you want to call it. And so there's, my mom was even in, right before the COVID-19 really hit, around that brink. She went in the hospital because her blood pressure was just a diastolic, I believe is the bottom number, was just really high. I mean, just continuously high. And we was back and forth. So I think, when you hear something like this, you have to ask yourself, okay, so is it me? Is it something that I need to change? Or, maybe I don't need to eat, for me, Krispy Kreme every day at this certain time, or some pineapple whip. Everybody know I love pineapple whip.
Okay, now.
That thing's good, right? But, but maybe I had to slow something down and then add a little bit more water here and everything. So I get it. So here you are. You recently had some situations, and I know we talked off air that you just recently came from the hospital because of a back injury or back surgery as well. The whole focus of this, and this is where I need people to kind of back up with me here, is I talk about not an amputee faith, because people get in situations like this and they deplete. Some people just totally back off and they run away from everything that happens, good or bad, and they're in a corner and they're just like, I don't know what to do. I can't move forward. You didn't do that, at least from what I'm seeing. But what was that struggle like transitioning?
Absolutely. Well, just to give you credit that what you're saying is absolutely truthful, is that every doctor I came in contact with back then, every physical therapist, everyone that was designed to assist amputees told me, if you wanted to stay home and collect disability, do you realize that there would be so many benefits afforded you?
Yeah.
No one would question if I needed a wheelchair. No one would question if I needed a $64,000 prosthesis. The woman's on disability. She can't walk. She has a leg cut off. But because I decided that, hey, I'm in the prime of my life. I need to work. I got some babies, nephews and a niece.
I know. I call you mommy auntie because you the first thing you will do is you'll bring out. You see my nephew.
Okay.
I'm like, you sure these ain't your kids?
That's right. I need money because I need to be the best aunt in the world.
Yeah.
And I went through so many challenges, from having to fight to get a wheelchair repaired to having to really struggle to try and get parking accommodations on my job. There were just so many challenges, everybody.
Not to cut you off, but I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised. And I'm not, and she's assistant professor at Missouri State University. I would think an institution of higher learning, and I've worked on many campuses. It would already be in place. I mean, what was that fight? I mean, what was that like?
Well, and the issue is that my department is in what they call prime real estate. We're in a beautiful building on campus,
right,
which is right next to the corporate office, if you will.
Right.
And so there's no parking spaces or spot or parking garage or parking arena that is near those two buildings. But what there is a cul-de-sac.
Right.
And I saw people on a daily basis pull into that cul-de-sac, park, get out, and come back 8 hours later. How do I know? Is because where my office was in that building, there's a big old window. And so all I needed to do was look out the window and see that activity. And so when speaking to my physical therapist, my rehab doctor, all those folks, they said, that's where you need to park. Do you realize that you are a lifelong fall risk? They wrote letters.
Yeah.
I spoke to the person responsible for accommodations. I mean, we really went back and forth for about a year. And if I'm not mistaken, it may have been even longer until we came up with another resolution that I would then park in the parking garage, and I had a motorized scooter that I would take across campus. But even still, if you think about it, some nights, just to show you how naive of an amputee I was, I would work late some nights, and by the time I would make it down there to that parking garage, it would be pitch black. And I wouldn't see anyone, but I would hear noises, and I'm going, oh, Lord.
I'm going to sit here and concur to all what you said, because for
I'm standing here trying to
concur to that.
how to load this scooter by myself onto this lift that I had on the back of my vehicle.
Oh my God.
Which the school did assist me in getting in. I look back on those days and I thought, all because I wanted to teach.
Right.
That's where
you knew where you needed to be.
Aside from being an aunt, I enjoy in telling my students exactly what they need to know to be successful in the industry. And I felt like they needed me, Nobody else maybe needed me, but I felt like my students needed me.
I have to say this. I read several comments in different articles about you from your students. And I mean, you could pull any of them, and they just talk very highly about you. Do they just gravitate to you because of your personality? Because that was the first thing that I say, this girl's personality off the chain. If I wanted to be a certain way, she ain't gonna allow me to be a certain way.
you know,
Is that what you get? Is that the energy you get back and forth from them?
I do. There are two things that I promised myself that I would do as a teacher. One, I would interpret the textbook, meaning we're not going to read what's on page 25.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what page 25 is all about.
Oh my God. My goodness.
And then second, almost everything that we learn, I've got a story, a real life story that goes along with it. So I would have students stop me in the hallway and say, Miss Jokima, I miss your class. I miss your stories.
Listen, it's interesting because you talk about stories, and I kind of want to jump into the books. You know, you're an author as well. And, you know, not just one time, not twice, but it seemed like 3 times. Am I correct?
Yes. Well, 3, I say 3 in a chapter.
3 in a chapter?
Yes, I have 1 chapter in a bigger book, a larger.
Gotcha. Now, you became an author. You Rev Par was one of your books, and kind of briefly talk about what that was about, because that was also co-written with Jill Woods. Am I correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Well, that will take you back to when I relocated to Indianapolis.
Okay.
I was recruited to take over a hotel there. And I think it was my dad. He always used to tell me there are 2 things you should do. You should always buy the car that you want at least once in your life, you know. And then
I like that.
And then secondly, you want to be recruited, so you should always accept that offer that you cannot refuse at least once in your life. And so this particular owner had left me a message at my work voicemail when I was still in Northwest Indiana. And he said, hey, I heard you speak many, many years ago in Chicago. And I have always said, I need to get this young lady on my team. And so I have a general manager's position available in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I would love for you to, you know, take on that role. I was like, no. I was at home, you know, it was 7 minutes from my parents' home to work. I'm being auntie going on field trips and things.
Right.
No. And then he called back and I talked to him and he started talking about how much the position paid.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say general managers in hospitality industry, you know, they make pretty good. Go ahead.
And then he really started talking my language when he said, I know that you aspire to be a hotel owner. And so if you whip this hotel into shape for me, he wanted it to be more effective financially. If I could do that in about 12 to 18 months for him, that he would cut me into his next deal, which I believe it was going to be a Hampton Inn somewhere in Wisconsin. I was like, okay, you got me, you know, I'm on my way. So I relocated and it wound up being the worst job of my life.
Oh my goodness.
And I recruited Jill, who I had known already.
Right.
And she was supposed to be retired.
Right.
And so we're the same age and we were real young back then. I can't remember how young it was, but I think I called her and I was like, girl, you 30. You're not retired, you know, however old it was. I said, you need to come on and help me with this hotel. I'm having a hard time. And so we got that place turned around in a year.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that, because when you read the book and then I read this book, you know, because I got in the hand the red book right here, because, you know, you signed my copy and I was like, you and Jill, and I'm, you know, and I sit up there and I laugh because I remember when Jill signed it, she said, real quick here, I'm not good with my papers. Thank you for attending and supporting. So this comes from Jill and comes from yourself as well. And when I showed up that day, we had a little sidebar conversation.
Yes.
And I was like, I said, how in the world did you deal with this one right here? And the first thing she said is, she is the black me and I'm the white her. And her comment just threw me to a whole nother level. And I was like, that was not the response that I was expecting. But it just seemed like you guys were the Batman and Robin. You
Well, when
know,
you are in what we call the trenches
yeah,
with
yeah.
somebody,
Mm-hmm.
it's a sisterhood. I
Right.
mean, it's a sisterhood. And so after I moved on, because of course
Mm-hmm.
the owner reneged on his deal,
Mm-hmm.
um, in fact, he offered me a tread climber, which I still have today instead of a financial bonus or a cut into
We talking about a tread climber, like the one you.
exercise machine,
Are you
baby.
serious?
Yeah, instead of a Hampton Inn or financial bonus. And so that's when I transitioned into education. And one day I was at Jill's house and we were chit-chatting and she said,
Mm-hmm.
girl, have you started writing a book yet? I said, no, Jill, I haven't. I said, have you? And she said, no.
Mm-hmm.
She says, okay. She went and got a sheet of paper. And in about 30 minutes, we had done an outline of what became the RevPAR formula. We had experienced so much in that year, so many challenges that
Mm.
we didn't live to write about it.
Oh my
So
God.
we can definitely laugh now, but going through it, I
Right.
think, in my head, I quit almost every day in managing that hotel, but the goal was achieved after a year.
Right.
And
Right.
so I didn't feel as though I was going to be leaving the industry and not have accomplished what I set out to do.
Now, you're a God-fearing woman. This is a Christian-based show. There's many followers out here who are listening, and they're asking the question, I'm sure. And again, if you have a question for Dr. Hiller, feel free to inbox me directly right now, or you can just be chiming in on our watch party and go ahead and ask the question, and we'll get it answered. But you faith, and I ask this
Yeah.
question with a lot of my guests. Faith.
Okay.
Where did your faith? Where was it challenged, and how did you pursue thereafter with faith? I mean, was there a time? Was there a time where faith was a struggle with this?
You know, it became a struggle for me when I transitioned from being an employee in a hotel to my very first management responsibility. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been holding on to faith ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've experienced age discrimination, certainly race discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
and now, being someone who has acquired a disability, and that's, as my mom would say, have you prayed yet? Because I would call my
Mm-hmm.
mom almost every night when Jill and I were at that hotel, and she'd say, did you pray before you called me? I said, Mom,
Right.
no, I did. You my backup. I prayed, now I got to talk to my
That's a mama for you.
yeah, get a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more wisdom. And she would say, Jokima, put your big girl panties on and go back.
Right.
Because when I say I quit in my head
Mm-hmm.
every day, I really did. That's how challenging this property was. And then there was a turning point, which was one of the perks. Again, this was the best offer, at this point that I've had in my life as far as
Mm-hmm.
financially was concerned. And one of the perks was that I had free dry cleaning. We were required to wear a suit every day. So one day
Okay.
I, had a suit dry cleaned. I filled out the ticket, Jokima
Mm-hmm.
Hiller. They pick up my dry cleaning. They dry
Mm-hmm.
clean it. They bring it back. I go to get my dry cleaning, and my name was changed from Jokima Hiller to Jokima Hitler.
Say what?
Hitler, Hitler. And I said, these are the people that I run incentive programs for out of my own pocket. They changed
Right.
my name. These are the people that when we have a departmental meeting, I pull
Mm-hmm.
$100 out of my pocket for a raffle. And they changed my name to Jokima Hill. These are the people that I work with and cover for and care about as if they were my nephews and my niece. And they changed my name.
We could sit here and talk about discrimination. We could talk about racism in so many different ways, but I have never in that format. I mean, I've seen obviously names written a certain way in bathrooms and things like that.
Changed that first L to a T. So Jill said, you know what we got to do, sister.
Right.
And what we did is that we terminated almost everybody in that entire hotel and brought on a whole new team.
What was your peers? What kind of support did you have through your peers other than Jill, of course? Because you was working for a major company.
Sure.
How did that play out?
You know, the owner, of course, started to see, wait a minute, you just terminated so-and-so. You just terminated so-and-so. What's going on? And so finally we had the conversation one day. And I said, why did you hire me? And he said, because, you know, I know that you have a very kind heart and that you take care of not only your guests, but of your employees. I said, then you need to trust that with my kind heart, I know who needs to go. And he said, okay, can you do one thing for me? Just tell me about it beforehand. And so almost every day for a good 3 or 4 months, I'd come into work, I'd send him an email and say, today, these 4 people are being let go. These 3 people are being let go. And, you know, it was a very unique situation. The only thing I can attribute it to is that they really loved the previous manager. And of course, because he was the reason why the property was inefficient. You know, money wasn't flowing to the bottom line, which the owners wanted. And so he allowed them to do some really outrageous things. Like one day, you know, I came to work and I'm like, where's everybody at? Everyone in that entire hotel, with the exception of one person at the front desk, had climbed into the shuttle van and they went to lunch. So I said, nobody's cleaning rooms? No. Where's the shuttle driver? Driving the shuttle. What if he has a run to the airport? And so the issue was that he would oftentimes come back to the area and wouldn't stop by to see them. And so they would see on social media that he was in town and they were mourning him not being there anymore. It was very strange, but they took it out on me. I said, do you realize what you are turning away? You know, the incentives and things that I've put together, the training programs, trying to make this, you know, not just an efficient hotel, but the best hotel in this area of town. Yet you won't open up and let me, you know, come in and be the new general manager. You're holding on to him. And guess what? He's at the beach with sandals on, letting sand flow through his toes. He's moved on.
Right.
And now you all are about to lose your job because you can't, you know, let him go like he has let you go.
You know, Jokima, you have, or Dr. Hiller, I should say, you have really shown me a side of you that just from interviewing so far, that the battles were not just necessarily obviously with the amputeeism, it was merely with the challenges of the change of the industry. You know, seeing someone in the leadership role, like in your situation, everybody doesn't accept change. It is what it is, you know, and I think we can all agree with that in all different aspects. But I want to fast forward a little bit, because not on the sake of time, but one of your books, obviously the Red Book, okay, it's a story. It's a story about, you know, notes from the first years of a general manager. And I think this is kind of where you're going with this, because some of the things that you are talking about is kind of reminding me about what I'm reading this book here and everything. But there's a particular chapter that I want to focus on real quick. And for those who are just joining us, hi Sabrina, how you doing? I see you. Ann Lewis, Sabrina Brinson, obviously, one of your coworkers. Ann Lewis, nice to see you. Scotty Allen, nice to see you. Let's see, Mona Hampton, nice to see you. Talisha Cheney, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. But here's something I want to read. And this is page 83 of the book. And it is, I believe, month 11, because you're going through a whole year. And we're talking about pimps, prostitutes, players, and is that crack?
Is that crack?
I'm sitting there like, I know this girl didn't go there, did she? But you do. But in the beginning, and I'm just going to read a little bit of this insert. It says, be careful what you say. It's been just a couple of weeks since the hazmat situation at the hotel, and Jackson still hasn't rebounded. He can't get the smell of the hallway and the room out of his nose and the magnitude of the situation out of his head. Now, this man was violently ill and in his hotel. Jackson snapped out of it and got back into inputting the numbers into the daily report. Average daily rate, which is ADR, occupancy, OCC, revenue per available, RPA, and room RevPAR. It was a good night at the property according to the numbers. And then you go on and you speak upon, and this is what gets me here. It says, let's see, just when Jackson grabbed the most recent Smith travel research report, Brooke entered his office looking pissed. Before he could ask what he did or didn't do, she pulled up the website on her phone of a woman in a lingerie. And Jackson did not know the woman. He was sure of it. Brooke told him to wipe the innocent look off his face and look at the room behind the woman. That looks like the one in our rooms, Brooke. No shit, Sherlock. Sure, she is advertising for dates as we speak. This was true. This was going on in your hotel. To my understanding,
yeah,
this is true. You got to tell me this story.
Okay, so let me just back up and say the Red Book is it's a salacious story.
Yeah.
But it is steeped in truth, meaning that what Jill and I did was we took this character, Jackson, who is right out of college, and he gets his first general manager's job. And what we did is we threw all of the experiences that we had in running this last property that we worked together on at Jackson within his first year. He doesn't handle everything quite the way we have, so there are some embellishments to the story. But the gist of this situation was this man was married,
right,
and he invited a prostitute who had been advertising herself to his room, and they engaged in drugs, and he slipped under the water in the jacuzzi. It was a jacuzzi suite, and he actually passed away. The police never told us whether it was that he drowned or if it was the drug overdose. And the story goes on that after the police cleared the room, took whatever evidence they wanted or what have you, his mom comes to the hotel the next day. And she says, "May I see the room?" And I said, "Well, the police, have cleared it. And I guess, you can take a look at it. I'll go in there with you."
Right.
And she said, "I'm just looking for anything that's left of his. I just knew, the way, the lifestyle he was living, I just knew this was going to happen." And she looks over into the jacuzzi tub, and there is one black sock, and it is soaking wet. And she pulls it to her chest. "Oh, my baby." Now, I wanted to crack up and roll around on the floor. it was so funny in that moment.
But you had to keep your
This
composure.
woman is holding on to a wet black sock.
Uh-huh.
But I was able to quickly compose myself, and I said, "Ma'am, may I get you a baggie to put that sock in?" And she says, "Yes, please." So I go to the breakfast room, I grab a little, Ziploc bag, and I put the sock in there and hand it back to her. And I was like, I'm going to have to write about this one day, because no one in the world will believe me that this woman came in here and is holding on for dear life for one black sock.
Wow.
That's the way the story goes.
It changes. The whole meaning of this changes to me, hearing it directly from you, and which is why, throughout the book I highlight a lot of stuff. And
Sure.
it's just me. I'm just like, oh, okay. And I have to be honest. I was recently in a hotel about when I had bought your book. I was traveling, again, going out of town, and I was reading. And of course, this is like my third time reading a book. But you start being aware and looking at things around
Absolutely.
you. And I'm sitting like, I kind of wonder if this actually happened, something like this or this setting. But listen, guys, for those who are just joining us, I'm with Dr. Jokima Hill, and we have explored her background. She is the assistant pastor. She is the assistant. I know.
Not another burden, please.
I know. Don't worry. No. You never know. She's the assistant professor at Missouri State University in the hospitality department. And guys, listen, she's a certified hospitality professional, and she has done things all over. But more than anything, she's a woman of God, a woman a co-author, as well as an author herself. 3 books, and one that we were just speaking on is called The Red Book. Obviously, you can buy it, and I'm sure she's going to give you some where to go and get it. If not, you can go to my webpage at brothermaze.com. That's livewbrothermaze. I'm like, I can't even speak tonight. So I'm still laughing off of some of this right here. But it's www.livewbrothermaze, and that's the soul way of spelling it, BROTHA maze.com. And of course, you can go check that book out. If you want to know more about Dr. Jokima Hiller, please follow her. She also has a radio show on Anchor FM, am I correct?
Podcast, yes.
Podcast, and she's still doing. And of course, we know it's late in the hour. Most of you guys have already been to church, and you got you a little bit of preaching, so I try to respect that. But is there anything that you would like to say, Jokima, before we end this interview? Because as a person, and again, the title does not necessarily represent the whole you, but not an amputee faith, because she is someone she's had a leg amputee. Is that the best way to say it? Amputee or
amputee, amputated.
Amputated. There you go. As it's amputated. And if you and we just have to be honest here. If you just crossing her in the public, you're not just gonna just walk up to her and say hello, or you're not gonna get a chance to just say, "Hey, how you doing?" Blah blah blah, and have this conversation. You almost got to be put into a humble situation before you really have the conversation that's needed and get the information that's needed. Because even with me, I was at church, and I was approaching her to ask her about doing media. And she says, I'm already doing it. Okay. So here's somebody who is, like I said, as a professor, her students love her, your associates love you, and those who come in contact love you. I love you. And of course, I thank you for being on my show tonight.
My pleasure.
Again, so is there anything that you like to tell people before you close us out? And also tell us how we can get your books as well.
Absolutely. One of the most asked questions of me since my amputation is, how do you cope? How do you wake up each day and go about your day? And so I try and be very open and forthcoming. And my first answer is, I don't know. And then my second answer is, it's God.
Amen. Yeah.
And then I do have employed some coping mechanisms over the years. And one is I really have turned my prosthesis into a personality. And her name is Sabrina.
Sabrina. Okay. And I appreciate you going back there because I had Sabrina right here and I said, yes, okay, I need to go back to that. Please, everybody, if you ever hear this name Sabrina or go to her social media, Sabrina is real. Okay. Sabrina is real. But let her tell you about Sabrina. Please go ahead.
So the very first piece of advice one of the very first pieces of advice I was given once I became an amputee was from another amputee. And she said, you know what, you're going to have so many appointments with, physical therapists, occupational therapists, doctor this and doctor that. I would recommend that you name your prosthesis so that they can say, how is this person versus your prosthesis? And so my goddaughter said, name her Sabrina. Wow. And from there, Sabrina was born. I mean, she is my friend. She's my helper. I mean, she is what allows me to be mobile and still look and act and do and be, I guess you could say, as normal as possible. And I knew I had either taken things a little bit too far or, hey, she truly is real when I walked into church one day and I kept hearing somebody go, Sabrina. Sabrina. And now there's another young lady that attends my church named Sabrina. So
right.
Oh, they're calling her. But I get to my seat and they finally catch up to me and they go, how's Sabrina doing today? And I said, are you talking to me? No, I'm talking to Sabrina. Take her shoe out. And I'm going, oh my goodness.
I got caught up in that too. And and I was on Facebook back and forth, girl, how's Sabrina doing? And I was like, I think I said one time, I said, Sabrina, your ride and die. You know that, right?
Okay, absolutely.
She is your ride and die. But I think that is positive. And again, before we close this out, just to say this, for any of you guys, anyone that's listening and you know of anyone who has had a limb amputated, this to me is probably the king of all kings therapy, is to bridge that relationship. Absolutely. And because I watched you transition, I watched you transition over the last couple of years with Sabrina to the point where Sabrina almost took over.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. People were asking about her, and I'm like, well, what about me?
Right. But it was in a good manner because it's like, okay, people are really listening, and when you, because I noticed that when you would, and I'll just say lash out or you cry out, it was Sabrina talking, not necessarily you. And so that was just like, wow, the strength behind all that was just amazing. But again, how could anyone get in touch with you if they wanted to?
Sure. Well, first of all, you can get any of the books that Jill and I have written on Amazon. Just simply type in Jokima Hiller or Jill Woods. They're also available on barnesandnoble.com. Okay. You can follow me on Twitter. There's only one Jokima Hiller out there. You can definitely connect with us on Facebook. Jill and I do a little bit of consulting and speaking. And so you can go to BET on hospitality. Just put that in for search in Facebook. And please, like our page. We talk not just about what we're doing, but the industry as a whole.
Is this also on your Anchor FM podcast as well? And that's interesting because I definitely want to listen to that. And you tell Jill for me, if she's listening tonight, I definitely want Jill, I want you on the show, okay? I need to have both of you on so we can just chime in all together because, girl, you, after that first response you gave me, I was like, yeah, she's the black me and I'm the white her. Oh, no, I said, yes. She lost me in between. Yeah, she said, that's the black me and I'm the white her. And I was like, okay. But I like that because you guys really bonded. And that says a lot about, like McFadden and Whitehead, they had great songs back in the day, same thing. you guys got great books, and so for anyone who is listening, this is a team, and obviously Jokima can definitely do her own thing as well. But hey, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Sabrina Branson, she put on the page, she's got Black Girls Rock. That's right, Black Girls Rock. So you can go back and look at this live as well. I'll be also putting this on the webpage. That's livewbrothermays.com, and that is spelled with an A, not an ER. And you can also go to my YouTube page as well, and that's Live Brother Mays Show, and to check this out. Guys, I am your brother from another, and my special guest, Dr. Jokima Hiller. We thank you. We all thank you. And for guys, if you want to join me next week, I'll be talking actually to one of your colleagues, newest board member of Springfield Public Schools, Miss Dr. Sharita Thomas Tate. And
Awesome.
so that'd be great. So hopefully we can get more of you guys back on. And hey, we're going to tune out tonight. And as I always say, I'm your brother from another mother, and I'm out. Peace.
Take care.
Take care, y'all.